The first tremor hit ADX Florence at exactly 7:12 a.m. Mountain Time, not from an earthquake, not from a breach, but from a cell phone vibrating in the hands of an inmate 1,500 miles away in Rikers Island. A grainy 43-second video had just dropped into dozens of encrypted Telegram channels, and within 1 minute, it detonated across the internet like a bomb no one was prepared for. Is this real? No way, camera inside ADX. Diddy just got jumped? By 7:13 a.m., the footage was on Twitter. By 7:14 a.m., it was on TikTok. By 7:18 a.m., it was on national news. And by 7:22 a.m., ADX Florence, the most secure federal prison in the United States, was in full lockdown. The clip was shaky, filmed from waist height, as though someone had hidden the camera against their shirt. The hallway it showed was unmistakable. Concrete, windowless, segmented by alarm-wired steel doors. This was F Block. Extreme isolation, a place where no inmate should ever walk freely, a place where every inch was monitored. Yet there he was, Diddy, dressed in the tan ADX uniform, hands cuffed in front, escorted by 2 guards, his head down, his posture slumped. He moved slowly like someone bracing for another day of surviving the concrete coffin they called the Alcatraz of the Rockies. Then it happened. A blur entered frame from the right. An inmate, broad shoulders, shaved head, a scar running across his cheek. He lunged toward Diddy, swinging hard. The sound of the first impact echoed through the hallway. Diddy stumbled into the wall as guards shouted. The attacker struck again. Diddy raised his arms, trying to shield his face. The camera jerked. Someone whispered, "Do it now." And just as a guard tackled the attacker to the ground, the footage cut off. That alone would have triggered national outrage. But what came next turned the internet into an inferno. A second angle, clean, steady, focused, not handheld, not shaky, not accidental. Someone else, somewhere else, filmed the same fight from a completely different vantage point. This time the shot was higher, angled downward, as though recorded from the ceiling. A hidden lens, a vent camera, a device no inmate should have access to, a device no guard should be able to install without clearance. 2 angles, 2 cameras, 1 fight. It was impossible. And because it was impossible, the world believed it instantly. Within minutes, hashtags exploded. #Diddy fight footage, #ADX leak, federal cover-up, #Diddy ambushed, Diddy instigated. The theory split into 2 extremes. Someone is trying to kill him. No, he staged it for attention. But inside ADX, panic hit like a shockwave. Alarms blared through every corridor. Lights flashed red. Doors slammed shut. Guards sprinted to control centers. The warden was called out of a performance review meeting across campus. "Sir, you need to see this. The internet," was all his assistant managed to say before pulling up the footage on a frozen laptop screen. His face drained of color. "Who recorded this?" he whispered. No one had an answer. At 7:34 a.m. the footage reached the Department of Justice. At 7:36 a.m. it reached SDNY prosecutors. At 7:40 a.m., Judge Aaron Subramanian's phone buzzed with an alert he could not ignore. Within 10 minutes, he issued a single-page order. The court will convene an emergency hearing regarding inmate Combs. Immediate review required. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered as if summoned by blood in the water. Helicopters circled the sky. Cars jammed the surrounding blocks. Tens of thousands of comments poured across social media every minute. Some demanded justice. Some demanded punishment. Some demanded truth. But everyone demanded answers. Back inside ADX Florence, guards swept the hallway where the fight took place. And while the internet was arguing about motive, the officers on the ground found something no headline was prepared for. Inside the air vent above the fight location, taped behind the metal grate, sat a small rectangular device. Not a phone, not a smuggled inmate camera. A transmitter, high-end, military-grade, designed for one purpose: to record and send video externally in real time, meaning the footage wasn't leaked, it was delivered. Someone had planned the fight. Someone had placed the cameras. Someone had orchestrated the leak with surgical precision. For one reason, to pull Diddy into another federal firestorm. One guard whispered, voice trembling, "Sir, this wasn't a fight. This was a setup." And as the warden stared at the device in his gloved hands, the truth settled like ice in his spine. This wasn't an attack on Diddy. This wasn't an attack inside ADX. This was a message to the court, to the system, to the world. And the sender wasn't done yet. By 8:03 a.m., ADX Florence was no longer a prison. It was a crime scene. Every hallway sealed, every inmate locked down, every guard stripped of electronics, every camera feed rerouted to a federal command station hastily assembled inside the administrative wing. The warden was pacing in the control room, jaw clenched so tightly the muscles in his face twitched. He had spent 22 years working through the most violent, most unpredictable, most mentally broken inmates in America, but he had never seen anything like this. The FBI cyber team arrived first, then the DOE intelligence unit, then the Department of Homeland Security, each group asking the same question: how did a camera inside ADX get footage out of the building? A young technician connected the mysterious vent device to a secure input terminal. The entire room leaned over his shoulder as the screen flashed, loading encrypted data. "This is not inmate level," the technician whispered. "This is high-end. This is organizational. Whoever planted this knows our internal systems." The warden swallowed hard. "Meaning?" "Meaning, Matt," the tech continued, fingers trembling over the keyboard. "This wasn't smuggled in. This was installed." Installed. That word hit harder than any punch in the leaked video. To install something inside a maximum security corridor meant one of two things. Either a guard did it, or someone impersonated one. Neither option was survivable for the people in this room. The technician ran a forensic trace on the transmitter. Strings of code scrolled across the screen. A routing table appeared. The device wasn't broadcasting via standard inmate contraband pathways. No Bluetooth, no wireless piggyback off-guard radios. No cellular repeater. It was using something far more dangerous: an internal maintenance signal path. ADX Florence had a private encrypted channel used for emergency communication between control stations. The transmitter had tunneled into that line using cloned credentials. Someone had access to the prison's backbone. Someone knew exactly how ADX's digital skeleton operated. Someone on the outside had walked right into the system like they built it. By 8:41 a.m., federal investigators tore apart the hallway where the fight occurred. They pulled panels from the walls, checked screws, lifted tiles, scanned for adhesives, traced wiring. They found a second lens fragment below the floor grate, a strip of black uniform cloth wedged behind the fire alarm panel, dust patterns showing the camera vent had been opened in the last 48 hours, scratches on the metal where tools had been used, and a small piece of electrical tape with fingerprints that didn't match any current employee. Worse, the attacker who lunged at Diddy wasn't supposed to be on that tier at all. "Who moved him?" the lead investigator asked. "No one," replied a guard. "Someone did," the investigator snapped. "Show me the access logs." The digital movement logs for the attacker loaded on a monitor, and immediately everyone in the room froze. At 6:49 a.m., 17 minutes before the fight, the attacker's cell door opened, remotely from Station C, a control desk reserved for administrative staff only. But the timestamp said the console wasn't being manned. No one had logged in. No keycard had been swiped. No biometrics detected. "Impossible," the warden whispered. Then the technician checked deeper logs and uncovered the nightmare. Station C had been accessed, but the login belonged to a guard currently on medical leave in Utah. His badge ID was used here. His biometric hash was used here. His admin credentials were used here. Someone had cloned them perfectly. Someone with intimate knowledge of the prison's internal systems. Someone with skill far beyond typical contraband smuggling. A cyber infiltrator. "This wasn't a fight," the lead investigator said. "This was a trigger event. Someone orchestrated the moment, recorded the moment, leaked the moment." "For who?" the warden asked. The investigator shook his head. "We don't know yet. But whoever it is, they're playing a game far bigger than Diddy. At 9:10 a.m., Washington called. The order was cold and direct. Prepare inmate Combs for immediate transport. SDNY has ordered an emergency hearing. He is to be in New York before 1 o'clock p.m. The room fell silent. Transporting Diddy after this was like marching a lightning rod through a hurricane. There was no safe path, no stable ground, no predictable outcome. But the order wasn't optional. The flight was prepared. The marshals briefed, the shackles inspected twice. Every safeguard tightened like a noose. Meanwhile, outside ADX, the world was spiraling into chaos. News anchors screamed, leaked fight footage, federal breach at ADX. Diddy under investigation again, commentators argued. Podcasts speculated. Social media exploded. Some swore Diddy staged the fight himself. Some swore he was being targeted by enemies inside the system. Some swore a larger criminal network was puppeteering everything around him. But one question drowned the rest. Who filmed the second angle? Because if one camera had been planted, how many more waited in the walls? The warden watched as Diddy, bruised, shaken, silent, was escorted toward the transport tunnel. For the first time in his career, he felt something deeper than fear. He felt hunted. Someone was inside his prison. Someone was inside his system. Someone was pulling strings he couldn't see. And they wanted the world to watch Diddy burn. The air outside the Southern District of New York courthouse felt electric, charged, like a thunderstorm was crouched just above the Manhattan skyline waiting to strike. Cameras lined the steps. Reporters elbowed for position. Protesters chanted. Supporters screamed. And somewhere beneath all that noise, a hush, an expectant, dangerous quiet hovered around the courthouse doors. Inside, the courtroom was packed beyond capacity, the gallery a forest of tense bodies and held breaths. The moment Diddy entered, escorted by 2 U.S. Marshals, the entire room shifted. He wasn't swaggering. He wasn't smirking. He wasn't even speaking. His right cheek was swollen. His lips split. His wrist trembled slightly inside the shackles. He looked like someone who had spent the night in hell and hadn't quite climbed back out. His attorney leaned toward him, whispering rapid-fire sentences. But Diddy only stared forward, eyes fixed on the judge's empty bench. A man preparing for impact. Then the murmuring stopped. A door opened. Judge Aaron Subramanian stepped in. He looked older today. Or maybe just heavier, like the weight of this case had finally seeped into his bones. He took his seat, straightened his robe, placed his glasses on the bridge of his nose, and said 2 words that made the gallery go silent. Play it. The lights dimmed, a screen lowered, and the infamous world-shaking footage began. The first angle appeared, shaky, chaotic, recorded at chest height. Diddy walking down the hallway, the attacker rushing him, guards shouting, a blow landing. Another. The camera jerks, the clip cuts, the gallery gasped just like the internet had. Then the second angle began. Perfectly framed, perfectly stable, high resolution, a view from above, a view only possible if a camera had been installed intentionally. The attacker watches Diddy approach, glancing over his shoulder twice, almost as if he's waiting for a signal. Then he steps forward and throws the first punch. Someone in the courtroom whispered, "Oh my God." Then came the moment that froze everyone. A third angle. Hidden, silent, deadly. A camera inside the vent, capturing the hallway seconds before the attack. And that's when the courtroom imploded with sound, because the vent camera showed something no one had expected. A figure, dressed in a guard uniform, walking down the hallway minutes before the fight. A figure whose face was tilted away, but whose posture suggested knowledge. A figure who stopped at the exact vent where the device was later found and reached upward. Planting, adjusting, preparing. The latch clicked. The person walked away. Seconds later, the fight began. The gallery erupted. Judge Subramanian slammed his gavel so hard the wood cracked. Order! Order! When the room finally quieted, the prosecutor stepped forward, his voice sharp enough to slice the tension in half. Your Honor, as you can see, this footage was not extracted by inmates. It was orchestrated, Someone engineered this fight, staged it, filmed it, and leaked it. This is not inmate misconduct. This is an infiltration of a federal supermax prison. Diddy's attorney jumped up. This proves exactly what we've been saying. Someone is targeting Mr. Combs. Someone is manipulating systems around him to escalate his sentence, endanger his life, or silence him entirely. But the prosecutor wasn't done. Your Honor, we obtained metadata from the leaked footage, specifically the second and third angles. They were exported using a cloned administrator login from ADX. The same digital signature used in the South Shaft contraband case involving Mr. Combs. The defense attorney's jaw clenched. That login was hacked. Yes, the prosecutor cut in, hacked by someone inside Mr. Combs' circle. Someone with access to his old networks. Someone who continues to act in his name or against him. The implication was horrifying. Either Diddy orchestrated this, or the shadow network connected to him still existed, and still had access to federal systems. Diddy broke his silence, eyes wide, voice shaking. Your Honor, I didn't ask for this. I didn't plan this. These people, whoever they are, they want me dead. They want me trapped. I have no control over this. His voice cracked like thin ice. Judge Subramanian looked at him, not with sympathy and not with anger, but with something colder. Concern. Real concern. Not for Diddy's safety, but for the scale of what the court was now facing. Mr. Combs, the judge said, voice low and steady, if what you're saying is true, then this court is not just dealing with an inmate disciplinary matter. We are dealing with a coordinated federal breach. The room held its breath. The judge turned to the prosecutor. Continue. And the prosecutor delivered the blow everyone had feared. We believe this fight was staged as a trigger event. The attacker's cell opened remotely. A camera system was planted. A cloned login extracted the footage. This was not chaos. This was choreography. The room buzzed. Reporters typed furiously. Spectators whispered like they were watching history unfold. When the judge looked back at Diddy, his voice carried the weight of an avalanche. Mr. Combs, whether you orchestrated this or whether someone orchestrated it around you, the consequences will be severe. The gavel came down, hard, and the courtroom knew. Part 3 was only the beginning of the nightmare. The courtroom felt colder now, as if the leaked footage had sucked all the warmth out of the air and left behind nothing but the metallic taste of dread. Even the sunlight filtering through the high windows looked pale and washed out, like it was afraid to touch the floor. Judge Subramanian sat completely still, hands folded, expression unreadable. The courtroom screens were frozen on the final frame of the third camera angle, the hidden vent shot, showing the disguised figure's hand pressed against the grate moments before the fight. That image alone carried more weight than any testimony could. It wasn't just evidence. It was a declaration. The prosecutor stepped forward again, voice steady but carrying a sharp undertone, like someone speaking through clenched teeth. Your Honor, after reviewing the footage, the metadata, and the forensic evidence from ADX Florence, the government is requesting immediate enhancement of Mr. Combs' sentence under federal statutes related to catastrophic institutional breach. The gallery erupted. A wave of shocked gasps rippled across the room. Diddy's attorney jumped to his feet. Your Honor, this is absurd. My client was attacked. He was a victim. You saw the footage. Someone set him up. But the prosecutor fired back instantly. Victim or not, Mr. Combs is at the center of a series of escalating breaches in a federal supermax prison. This is the third major incident tied to his confinement. Contraband, encrypted devices, unauthorized communication pathways. Now federal infiltration clearly linked to the same digital signature we've seen before. He pointed at the frozen screen. Your Honor, the presence of this third camera, positioned within a restricted vent, indicates that whoever orchestrated this event had access to internal architecture. That suggests a catastrophic security failure, and catastrophic failures require catastrophic consequences. Diddy's attorney slammed a hand on the table. You're punishing him for someone else's actions. But the judge raised his hand, silencing both sides. Then he spoke, slowly, precisely, like each sentence was being lifted from stone. Mr. Combs, this court acknowledges that you may not have physically orchestrated this event. However, the pause was long enough to make Diddy's breathing hitch. You remain at the center of a pattern of federal compromise, whether by your own actions, your past associations, or the ongoing influence of entities acting in your name. The reality is clear. Your presence within ADX has repeatedly triggered breaches that endanger the institution, its staff, and other inmates. A murmur spread through the gallery. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Combs, containment is no longer about punishment. It is about prevention. Diddy's face crumbled. He shook his head slowly, disbelief settling into his bones. No, no, Your Honor, please, he whispered, voice cracking. I'm not doing this. I swear, I'm not. But the judge continued, relentless. This court has reviewed the emergency findings. The government has requested an enhancement of 20 years. He closed the file. And the court agrees. The room fell into stunned silence, so silent that the faint hum of the fluorescent lights suddenly felt deafening. Diddy froze. 20 years, on top of everything else. Another shackle added to a chain that was already dragging him under. His attorney whispered urgently, Sean, breathe, look at me. But Diddy didn't respond. His eyes were locked on the judge, wide, haunted, disbelieving. Your Honor, his attorney began, desperation rising in every syllable. No, the judge said, firm and final. The time for argument has passed. The prosecutor folded his hands neatly, as if satisfied but still uneasy, as if he knew this wasn't a victory, but a warning. The judge spoke again, tone dropping to something colder. Mr. Combs, whether you are directing these breaches, or whether something around you continues to act independently of your control, the court's obligation remains the same, to protect federal institutions from further compromise. His gavel hovered. The entire room inhaled. Therefore, the sentence is enhanced by an additional 20 years, effective immediately. The gavel struck, a single explosive crack that shattered the air like a gunshot. Diddy staggered, knees buckling. The marshals reached out to steady him, but he pulled away, gripping the table, head shaking violently. No, I didn't do this. I didn't. I'm not controlling anything. They're using me. Someone is using me. Please. But the courtroom didn't soften. His voice echoed in a vacuum. Cameras were rolling. Reporters scribbled. People whispered. And the judge delivered the final blow. This is not about blame. It is about containment. The sentence hung in the air like a death sentence without the ceremony. Diddy looked up, tears forming in the corners of his eyes. His lips trembled. He seemed suddenly smaller, like a man realizing he was no longer fighting his past, but something far bigger, far darker, far more invisible. Something he could not name, something he could not stop, something that kept dragging him back into the fire. The marshal stepped in. Stand up, Mr. Combs. As they lifted him from his chair, his voice cracked into raw panic. They won't stop, don't you understand? They won't stop until I'm either silent or gone. But the judge had already turned away. The sentence was finalized. The courtroom moved on, and the world outside braced for the next shockwave. The courthouse emptied slowly, as if no one wanted to be the first to breathe again. The moment Judge Subramanian's gavel struck, the world outside erupted into chaos. Shouts, camera flashes, helicopter rotors slicing the air. But inside the courtroom, something else lingered. A heaviness, a shadow, a sense that this wasn't an ending at all. It was the beginning of something far darker. Diddy staggered as the marshals escorted him through the underground corridor, wrists trembling, chains clinking in a rhythm as uneven as his breath. He wasn't crying, he wasn't yelling. His voice had hollowed into a quiet, fractured whisper. They're setting me up. You people don't understand. They're in your systems. They're in everything. No one responded. The marshals had heard variations of these pleas from countless inmates before. But something about the trembling in his voice, the unfocused panic in his eyes, carried a weight. They could feel he believed every word. The secure transport van waited at the loading dock. Black steel, reinforced. Windows tinted to near darkness. But even behind all that protection, Diddy didn't look safe. He looked hunted. Just before the door shut, he leaned toward one of the marshals. "They're going to reach me again," he whispered. "They always do." The marshal's jaw tightened. Something about the way Diddy said it, certain, resigned, sent a small chill creeping up his spine. The doors slammed. The convoy pulled out, wailing sirens carved through Manhattan's grid, but the real storm was just beginning. By the time the plane touched down in Colorado, ADX Florence was already a fortress under siege. The prison hadn't seen a security flare like this in years. Federal vehicles clogged the outer perimeter. Helicopters patrolled overhead. Tactical teams lined the walls. Inside the administrative command center, the atmosphere was suffocating. Agents had finally decrypted more data from the vent transmitter, the device that had secretly recorded the fight. When the screen loaded, everyone expected a raw feed, timestamps, maybe a corrupted file. What they got instead was worse. A message, text, plain, cold. Phase 7 complete, adjust timeline, live feed successful. The entire room tensed. The agents exchanged uneasy glances. No inmate wrote this. No random hacker wrote this. This was coordinated, structured, organized, a network, a chain of command, someone watching every move from miles away. The warden stepped closer to the screen, his voice barely audible. This wasn't about the fight." The lead investigator nodded grimly. "No, the fight was the distraction. The real objective was the recording." When Diddy arrived at ADX, sirens wailed faintly in the cold night as marshals escorted him through the maximum security tunnel. His shackles scraped against the polished floor. His breathing echoed off the concrete. His eyes darted toward every shadow. He whispered, "They're already here. I can feel it." But the marshals kept moving. He was transferred into Ultra Isolation Unit 4, the coldest, most unforgiving wing of the entire prison. No personal items, no recreation, no contact, no sound but the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. The cell door slammed shut behind him. This was no longer punishment. This was containment. This was preservation from the outside forces trying to pull him into something deeper or erase him entirely. Diddy sat on the concrete bench, hands in his lap, staring at the slit window. Snow drifted outside. He swallowed hard, voice shaking. "They're not finished. They're never finished." Meanwhile, 700 miles away, in an abandoned industrial warehouse outside Reno, Nevada, two hooded figures stood before a wall of monitors. The leaked ADX footage played silently on a loop, casting flickering shadows across the room. One figure, tall, calm, composed, spoke first. The event triggered exactly as predicted. The second figure chuckled darkly. The court reacted. The sentence increased. Containment remained stable. There was a pause, a soft hum. Flickering lights reflected off crates containing equipment stamped with labels in multiple languages. The tall figure closed a laptop. "Begin extraction of remaining assets. Prepare Phase 8. "And what about him?" the second figure asked. The tall figure's reply was cold, surgical. "He is still useful. For now." The monitors dimmed. The warehouse lights faded. The figures disappeared into the darkness as silently as they had come. Back in ADX Florence, the warden reviewed the decrypted message again. His hand trembled, not from fear of the inmate, but fear of the unseen architects around him. He whispered to himself, "This wasn't a breach. This was a test." And somewhere deep in the isolation wing, Diddy pressed his forehead to the cold concrete, tears streaking silently down his face. Because for once, he wasn't exaggerating. He wasn't manipulating. He wasn't lying. He was right. They weren't done. They weren't leaving. They were only getting started. And the new sentence wasn't the punishment. It was the prelude. The documentary closes on a single chilling line. The footage wasn't meant to expose Diddy. It was meant to announce the network was ready to move again.